Hello guys and welcome to my YouTube channel. For today's tutorial, which is very beginner friendly, I'll be showing you how to make this really beautiful and simple dress with a keyhole detail in the center. If this is something you find interesting, kindly click on the subscribe button before we dive into the main tutorial. First things first, I'll list out my client's measurements on the top corner of the screen so you can see it and get along. Secondly, this dress is your basic dress pattern, but I'll be cutting it directly on fabric and it's going to be having just a simple waist start. The straight line I made is where I'll be taking my measurements from. Shoulder width divided by 2, I'll take that down, which is 7.5, and mark it on the fabric. This is the front pattern, so I'll mark my front neckline depth. I'm working with 4 inches depth. I'll go ahead to mark the other measurements like the bust point measurement 11 inches, the waist length measurement 18 inches, and the hip length measurement, which is 8 inches from the waist length measurement. I'll connect the points of this measurement with a straight line like I am doing. Next thing is to get our chest line and our armhole curve, which is 2 inches above the bust point line. We'll connect the shoulder measurements we got to the armhole line, which is also the chest line, and then we'll come down the shoulder line by 1 inch and connect it in a slant position to our neck width. For the armhole curve, you get half of this straight line measurement like this, and then on that point you go in by half of an inch and you connect with a curved ruler. We'll also connect our necklines together, the neck depth to the neck width, and we'll proceed with the rest of the measurement. On the bust line, you take the bust measurement divided by 4, which is 42 divided by 4, 10.5, and you mark it on your bust line. For the waistline, you repeat the same waist measurement divided by 4 and you mark it on your waistline, and you add 1 inch for your waist start measurement. For your waist start, you get the quarter of your waist measurement you marked divided by 2. That gives me 5 inches. That will serve as my dart line. On both sides of my dart line, I'll mark half of an inch, which will give us 1 inch in total. This makes up for the additional 1 inch we added when we took quarter of our waist measurement. You mark your dart line measurement on the bust line as well, 5 inches. It will be different for different body types, and you connect with a straight line like this. You come down your bust line by 1 inch. That's where your dart line will be starting from. You also come down your waistline by 4 inch. That's where your dart line will be ending. It will start from the 1 inch below the bust line and the 4 inches below the waistline. You would connect all these points in this manner. This is what your waist start will look like on fabric. On the hip line, you place quarter of your hip measurement, which is 46 divided by 4, 11.5. You can repeat the same measurement on the length of your dress if you're making yours a straight dress. But if you want it slightly fitted, you can go in 1 inch on the dress length. So instead of 11.5, you have 10.5 on the dress length measurement. You connect all these points in this manner from the hip to the hem and from the hips to the waist with a slight curve. From the waistline, you connect to the bust line and to the armhole line. Next is to add our sewing allowance of 1 inch on the sides and connect the measurements like we did initially. When you're done with that, we proceed to cut. Start with the neckline, and then on the shoulder slants we would half an inch sewing allowance, and on the armhole as well we'll add half an inch sewing allowance. When we're done cutting, as usual, don't forget to notch each side, the bust line, the waistline, the hip line, so you don't make mistakes when you're joining the seams together with the back piece. I'll just go ahead now to mark my dart line on the other side of my front pattern piece for ease while sewing. When we are done with that, we'll be using our front piece to cut the back piece. To get my center back line, I will mark the line where my center front line started from. I'll mark the straight line like this manner. I'll mark my neck width as well, and for the back neck depth, I'll be coming down my starting point with by 1.5 inch. I'll connect the neck depth to the neck width like this with a curved ruler. For the shoulder slant, I'll trace out the front shoulder slant, but for the armhole curve, I would separate it because the back armhole curve is different from the front armhole curve. So I'll just mark this point where it starts the shoulder slant, and then I'll connect these two straight points together and curve it in a simple manner. Just watch and you would understand. This is what the back armhole curve looks like. As you can see, it is different from the manner in which we create our front armhole curve. So I'll just go down the slant, create my shoulder slant and connect it to my neck width. I will also connect the half-inch allowance of my shoulder slant to my chest line to create the armhole curve allowance. We'll alter the center back on the waistline to eliminate zip bulge. So we'll add our 1-inch allowance for the zip from the top of the neckline to the hem of the dress. On the center back line, you take in half of an inch on the waistline. This dress is going to have an overlapping vent, and I'll do that by marking 10-inch from the hemline upwards. This is to allow my client to walk freely in her dress because this is a slightly fitted dress and it is short in length. For a longer dress, you would like to go upwards by about 13 to 15 inches depending on your client's choice. Actually, for the overlap, I'll be using an allowance of 5 inches rather than 1 inch, and I'll be cutting it in this manner. I'm done taking the measurements now. I'll proceed to cut out the measurement I took, the neckline, the shoulder slants, the armhole curve, and remember I said I'll be tracing the sides measurement, and I'll also notch it when I'm done. Don't forget that on the waistline you go in half of an inch from the original line we drew as our center back line. This is to eliminate the zipper bulge on the waistline, and then from that half of an inch that we go inward by, you take 1-inch measurement for your zipper allowance. Now our front and back piece are placed together. You would come up on the side by half of an inch or 1 inch, and you connect with a slant ruler to the center pieces. I'll separate the front piece from the back piece now so I can take the back that measurement. From our new center back on the waistline, I'll connect with a straight ruler to the side and also connect my chest line measurement to the side and my hip line measurement to the side. To get my dart line on the new center back on the waistline, I would go in 5 inches and I would mark it on my hip line and my chest line. I'll connect this point with a straight ruler like this. Like we did for the front, on the center line, I'll mark half of an inch on both sides and I'll connect it to the chest line or the armhole line, and I'll come down 4 inches from the waistline and connect it to the end of my dart. I'll repeat the same thing for the other side of the back piece. When I'm done, I'll flip it over and I'll notch the necessary points. I'll go back to our front piece now to create the keyhole in the center front. This is the measurement I will be using, however you can use any measurement you desire. The width I'm working with is about 2 inches. At this point I just decided to eyeball it and just go with the flow. Now this is what it should roughly look like, and then I'll proceed to cut it out. Before we continue, if you've gotten to this point, thank you for being around, and you know what to do if you haven't done it yet. Please subscribe and turn on the post notification so you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video on this channel. If you would like a follow-up sewing tutorial video, kindly let me know in the comment section. Then we'll continue. This is what it will look like when you open it up, and this is roughly how you just stitch it to cover up the keyhole. Next thing we'll be working on are the sleeves. I'll be cutting it in a circular manner, the manner in which you cut your flare skirt or your circle skirt. This is because I want the sleeves to be full on both the top and the bottom. However, if you're short of fabric, you can easily just, cut a straight piece of fabric and you gather both the top and the bottom as you desire. What I'm going to do is to roughly get the round armhole measurement. This is to give me a rough idea of what measurement I should use while cutting the sleeve on this flare pattern. I'm going to be cutting the sleeve in excess because I'm going to gather it at the top. When I measured it, I was getting something really close to my round armhole measurement, and I wanted it to be in excess so I could gather at the top And so I'll just extend it and eyeball it in this way till I get something that is desirable. For the sleeve length, what you want to do is from the top of the sleeve, the cap height, you mark your desired length, sleeve length. From the cuff part of the sleeve, you will measure your sleeve length and then you cut in a circular manner. I'll knot to the top of my sleeve when I'm done cutting. I was short of fabric here, but I just want you to have an idea on how to properly take your sleeve length measurement when cutting this style of sleeves. At the end of the day, you'll be gathering your top sleeve and the bottom sleeve is going to be having either an elastic or you can just gather it to your desired fitness. It is as simple as that. We have finished drafting and cutting a basic gown on your fabric. Now if you want to watch this sewing video or if you'd like me to make a sewing video, just kindly let me know so that I will do that. If you found this video useful, please leave a comment, share it as well, and leave a thumbs up so it can reach the proper audience and as many sewing beginners would find this video useful. See you on our next video. Bye bye.